watching Goal Line Extended, presented by Lacrosse Flash.
What's going on, Lacrosse fans? Welcome to the PLL Flash on the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Hulsebos, joined by Lacrosse Flash writer Maki Jenner and Flash editor-in-chief Austin Owens as we get set to take a look back at last weekend's semifinal action, which sets up next weekend's PLL Championship game from our nation's capital, or at least in my nation's capital, from Washington, D.C. As my Canadian counterparts, you'll both be at this championship rematch. Maki, how excited are you to be seeing this rematch up close in person, getting the chance to watch the Whipsnakes go for this three-peat?
Yeah, I have never been to a PLL game, so I am absolutely stoked to be getting to go and meet some of my co-workers as well there. I cannot wait. I'm seriously so excited. I'm so lucky that I had the weekend off from lacrosse and everything that I could actually be able to get out there. So I am ecstatic to get there.
Austin, you'll also be making an appearance in DC. Seems like everybody but myself will be there. I expect emphatically picking the Whipsnakes come next weekend.
Yeah, from the press box, that's the plan. I'm going to be, there's no cheering in the press box, but I'm definitely going to be on the Whips wagon because I was, again, specifically told by Andy Towers that I am not allowed to root for the Chaos. So don't get happy. This is exactly.
We were specifically told by Coach Towers not to pick his team. I went and did it. I went ahead and did it.
You're a braver man than I am, Ryan.
In terms of wins losses here for the picks.
No, I don't trust that guy. I love AT. I don't want to be on his bad side though. No, I'm excited. This will be my first game as well. I didn't get to make it out to Hamilton in 2019, so it's gonna be a really good time for everybody. I think we'll make sure to send you lots of photos, Ryan.
Absolutely, because I'm the one of very few of us missing this game. I'm very jealous of you both,
school.
but I appreciate you both joining me today. And for everyone watching, thank you for joining us as well. My personal apologies for kind of pushing this show later on into the week. We usually have this out by Tuesday. I was in a pretty tough battle with a sinus cold. Was not COVID, so that was a big plus, but it did have me sidelined for a couple days. But we're here now. We are ready to talk some lacrosse. As Maki, just one game remaining, and really it was the matchup that coming into these playoffs we knew was a possibility with the Chaos on one side of the bracket, the Whipsnakes on the other. You're thinking there's a chance they both win 2 games for the Chaos. That means beating the Archers and then beating the Atlas, who were red hot coming into these playoffs. And if you're Jim Stagnated in the Whipsnakes, you got a Redwoods team that I can't exactly say you have a lot of history with, but you have history with them, playoff history. And if you win, you need to go beat the team that was playing the best lacrosse since the All-Star break and knock off the top seed in the Water Dogs. They did just that, both of these teams, and now we have this championship rematch, Whipsnakes and Chaos, with the Whipsnakes seeking their 3rd consecutive title. But Maki, I don't know if it's just me, and obviously the lacrosse has been electrifying, and we want the 2 best teams to be playing in the championship. And these 2 teams have proven here that they are the 2 best teams, but it's not really the matchup that I think we all wanted to see or expected to see when we were looking at this playoff picture back in mid to late August.
No, you're absolutely right. The lacrosse has been unbelievable, and I think if you told me that the Chaos were going to make another playoff run, I would have called you crazy at the beginning of the season, even the mid-season. I think the Chaos have this weird history of peaking at the right time, and I think the question just is can they finish? Can they make it throughout this game? We saw these exact 2 teams last year in the bubble, and I think we're all just waiting to see if there will be a different result. I don't think that we could ever say that we could doubt the Whips, even if we wanted to. They've just shown all season how strong they really are, and I don't think we could have ever doubted that they would be here in this championship game as well.
I can say for one that I was not exactly fully expecting to see the 5 and the 6 seed here in this championship, but you obviously take a step back and look at it. The Whipsnakes all of a sudden were just reloaded, whether guys were returning from the injured list or coming out of, coming in via trade or off waivers and stepping up. On the other hand, the Chaos started to get into a groove towards the end of the season, and then once you hit the postseason, anything can happen. And just like that, we've got this championship matchup that we saw in the 2020 Championship Series pump out just a year ago. And let's start with this Chaos team, Austin, as they get another complete team win is really what I can describe this as, which I think is the best way to put it as well. 15 goals scored against a defense that held them to 10 back in week 5, and for just pretty much overall, the Atlas have been playing good defense the last couple weeks. Max Adler won just shy of 50% of his faceoffs. More importantly, I think he limited Trevor Baptiste to just 61% faceoff winning percentage, as that number was a flat 70 back in that early July loss. And along with this defensive unit that has been lights out since week 8, Blaze Reardon makes 17 saves, 68% on over 50 Atlas shot attempts, and even tallies on 2 assists. Austin, Coach Towers told us last week ahead of this game that this was going to be an all-hands-on-deck type of game. If the Chaos wanted to win this game, it seemed like this team answered the call.
Yeah, everybody came to play. I think that's the main thing that's really interesting. And I know during the game, a lot of people were talking about Max Adler and, oh, wow, Max Adler has taken this huge step. I was like, no, this is kind of what Max Adler was and why Andy Towers picked him up in the first round of the entry draft. Like, he is the guy. He's a really good guy. I mean, one of the first episodes we were on here, Ryan, Joe Nardella said that he was scared to face Max Adler. And now these two are going to go head-to-head in the championship game. So I'm really excited to see what happens. I don't quite know what's going to happen because you know what happened in the opening game of the season, right? Chaos kind of got run over. That started an 0-3 run to start the year, and despite saved by Blaze, as much as we like to say it, it just didn't go well for them. So they're a much different team from this point, from that point in the season to that point in the season. But yeah, it's like you said, they need to have everybody show up. It needs to be Blaze being Blaze. I think we can pretty much guarantee that he's going to do that. Jared Newman and Jack Rowlett have to be huge. The transition game has to be big. I know Troy Ray and CJ Costabile have really chipped in. And then that offense is going to be really interesting. And I think that unit's starting to really gel towards the end of the season. Now, you see guys like, Josh Burns getting his, but you see, Dane Smith, 12 points in 2 playoff games, massive. Kyle Jackson, he was a little quiet in the semifinal, but that 6-point performance in the quarterfinal against Archers, fantastic. Ryan Smith, Mac O'Keefe, guys like that are stepping up at the right times. Even Tanner Cook when he was in the lineup. Now it's Chris Cloutier. You just get everybody in on the party. And I know family style isn't their thing. It's the Atlas, but it's really like everybody is eating for the Chaos right now. And they proved it in that game against the Atlas. They're going to need everybody to show up again. And I think, from talking to guys on Chaos, they know that you saw it in the game. They went on a really crap run, to put it mildly, at the end of that game where the Whipstakes came back and took over and won that title, powered by Zed pretty much. They're going to need to avoid that. And with the whips, especially in a championship game, you have to take advantage of every single possession. And, Chaos has the team to do it. It'll just be whether they can get over the hump. And really, I think they're in the mindset that they can do it this time around. I think they were in the mindset last year that they could do it, but I think they really believe they could beat the Whips this year on the roll they're going on.
The Chaos, led by head coach Andy Towers, will roll into D.C. following this huge win over the Atlas in Philadelphia, thanks in large part to a 10-1 run in the second half and to close out this game. 15-9 was the final score, with the Buffalo Bandit duo of Dane Smith and Josh Byrne leading the way with 7 goals combined. Chris Cloutier also found the back of the net twice in his return. And Maki, the Poles even got on the action, as well as Austin mentioned there before. CJ Costabile and Troy Ray each buried a 2-point shot in transition. Costabile also scored another goal thanks to the quick transition play from Blaze Reardon in goal, which, Maki, it seemed like all game we saw those quick outlet passes coming from Blaze, whether it was to Costabile or to Ray or even Ian McKay or Mark Lassini. They were able to get and create quick transition and get the ball forward, cashing in there on a few as well. And it seemed like the Atlas weren't exactly ready for that coming into this game.
Yeah, as a defender myself, I always have a huge appreciation for when you watch a team where, like Austin said in the first game, they absolutely got run over. But having Blaze as your goalie, and if I was on that team, I would absolutely be inspired to want to step up my game so that it doesn't always have to be saved by Blaze. And when it is, and when you have that, that's amazing and a huge confidence booster for a team. But then when you can have, your guys like Troy Ray and Costabile get those outlet passes and be able to go put in the work for themselves, even on the offensive end where they're not used to being, that's just huge. And I think it really goes to show how this team has progressed over the season and how, even last year making up until the final game, I think their defense still struggled a bit. But they're contributing this year and they're really trying to push forward to get to that championship level team. And I do think that they have done a good job. But I honestly do give a lot of credit to Blaze because I think that he is kind of that grounding person for this entire team, and he has really done a good job of getting these guys to, we can do this, we can get to the championship game despite what people are saying, despite what anyone's saying. And I'm excited to see how they do in the finals. So I mean it's only up to the the final game to see, but I think that it's really great to see how you can turn a team around and how defenders can have such a big impact on the field.
The Chaos will move on to their second consecutive championship appearance, seeking their first PLL title, which they came about a full quarter short of last season when they had that 6-3 lead on the Whipsnakes. Heading into the fourth quarter, the Whipsnakes then closed the door with a 9-0 run, as we all know. And remember, we'll wait and see if the Chaos can change their fortunes this time around, and we'll be talking much more about them next week in the build-up to this championship game. But Austin, with the Chaos moving on, that means that this is the end of the road for this Atlas team that surprised so many this season, coming in with a ton of new names, fresh off the offseason retool that Coach Rubier embarked on, moving a few pieces early through trades. He then seemed to really zero in on guys that he wanted early in the offseason, which drew some criticism here and there, but he got his guys that he wanted, and then through the entry draft and early in that waiver period. And then he also drafted Cornell attackman Jeff Teat, first overall in that college draft, accompanied by 5 other players, 4 of whom, alongside Teat, would play pretty vital roles on this team, especially towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. And Austin, I think it's safe to say that the retool is over. Again, we classify it as more of a retool than a rebuild, but Rubier is going to be able to continue to build on this and keep putting this team together, as he'll have a mid-round pick in the first round of next year's college draft. And then by way of the Paul Rabel trade, the Atlas own the Cannons first-round selection, which looks like it should be in that top 3, most likely second overall. So they go from a first overall pick following a lousy 2020 to getting the roof absolutely blown off in week 1 against the Archers. They then figure things out. They go on to win 5 straight, 5 of 6 to end the regular season, a relatively successful season, albeit no championship, and they'll now select again, towards the top of next year's college draft. Again, no championship, so the final goal definitely wasn't accomplished, but you got to imagine that a lot of boxes had to be checked off as this team quickly rose up to becoming one of the most dangerous units in the league.
Yeah, you put it perfectly right there. I think the championship's obviously the main goal for every team. They didn't get there. But if you were to tell Ben Rubio at the start of the year that, you'd have Jack and Cannon go down and JD Colarusso would step right in and be great. Jeff Teat would miss the first 2 games of the year and still be an MVP candidate. Trevor Baptiste, would do what he does. Brian Costabile would be up for midfielder of the year, I believe. Maybe not. Don't quote me on that. Oh, God.
Oh, he is.
Oh, fantastic. I'm not wrong yet.
He's up for midfielder.
We've still got a long episode to go, so we'll get something wrong. If you told Ben Rubio that all these things were going to fall into place and Danny Logan and Peter Durth would be as good as they were, Michael Rexroad would be up at the top when it comes to CTOs and loose balls, I'm sure he'd be thrilled. The final goal wasn't reached, but there's always next year. It's a terrible cliche, but it's like you said, nobody expected them after that Archers game to be anywhere near a playoff spot. They got run over by that Archers team, and there's no other way to put it. Like that, I thought 1 game into, I believe, a 9-game slate, and it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a long go for these guys. And they completely proved us wrong. We talk about chaos in the 13%. 7% were with the Archers that next game, and they won. It's massive. It's obviously just PLL fans sort of, riding the different waves, and I don't blame them. I was part of that wave that picked the Archers and the chaos.
I imagine we were all a part of that wave at that point.
No, Maki was not. Sorry. Let me concede the floor. Maki, you were right.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, sorry, Atlas. No, they're fantastic. Like, Eric Law is going to be back next year. Jeff Teat's only going to get better. He's going to have a full slate next season. Romar Dennis really proved a lot to me this year. I know he's sort of gotten that, bad rep that he's inaccurate when it comes to hitting the net. When he puts it on net, it's probably one of the hardest shots in the league. And then you got Brian Costabile. He just keeps growing as a 2-way midi. That defense looks really good. And you have another couple top picks in this draft next year. And these drafts are still going to keep getting better and better. I don't know about the entry draft. They're going to get somebody good. It won't quite be as loaded as it was this year, I don't think, but I'm happy to be wrong at any point. So prove me wrong, PLL, please. And the college draft's going to be fun. They're going to get another good player. Ben Rubier proved that he can really scout well. You got Dox, you got Dearth, you got Logan. You went out and got Teed, obviously. Like, I'm missing Gerard Arceris, the other one. He didn't play much, but and Caraway. My goodness, Jake Caraway. What a season he had. He got into a little bit of chirping back and forth on Twitter with Tyson Bell, but that is what it is. Boys will be boys. And yeah, I mean, there's always next year. It's a crap way of putting it for Atlas, but I don't think Ben Rubio is worried with the age of his team that they're getting towards, sort of what Chrome's going through in a sense, where some of their guys like Jordan McIntosh and John Rannigan and Galloway and White are sort of they're done obviously, but their guys are getting older. They're in that perfect sweet spot where they're only going to keep getting better because they're so young.
You think about this Atlas team's second overall pick, most likely in this college draft. You have to imagine, obviously, the Cannons would, as the 7th seed, you'd imagine they would take that second overall spot. But Chris Gray, if the Chrome are to pass on Chris Gray first overall, he could fall right into Ben Rubier's lap. I don't know if Rubier pulls that plug right there and grabs Gray. I'd have to imagine he would. Then again, I'd have to imagine Gray wouldn't be there come the second overall pick.
It's going to be interesting to watch because there are not a lot of teams that need a whole lot of things in this league. So it's just going to be a lot of depth adds and guys that come out of nowhere. Like this year was crazy though, because you had, guys like Jackson Morrill and like all these guys that were taken outside the first round that made huge impacts on their team. So you really never know with these picks. They could run in and be fantastic. It's really a toss up, which is nice. But if Chris Gray's there, I don't think you pass on him. If he's at 2, you don't really pass on him. I don't know what the board looks like right now. I haven't really done my research, but yeah, if for some reason Chrome passes on him at 1, it's a pretty easy decision, I think. I don't know that Chrome will pass on him at 1, given the fact that they just traded Justin Gutterding.
Definitely someone that we will be watching come next season's college draft. Then again, though, just kind of thinking about Atlas picks that pay off. I don't think many of us expected Danny Logan to play this big of a role on this Atlas team. Obviously, I don't think many of us expected him to get drafted as high. Danny Logan has proved everything that he's had to prove this season. Short stick defensive player of the year finalist, has had a great year. So definitely we will see as the Atlas continue to build on this 2021 success, 2021 roster. We'll see what they can do into next offseason. But pinned on my Twitter account at Ryan Hulsebos _, I quote tweeted Noah Lance's tweet, aka PLL Chirps' tweet from opening weekend, that the Atlas is going to surprise everyone this year with the cap emoji. Again, calling myself out here. I didn't believe it. I didn't see it happening a turnaround this quickly. But Coach Rubier and this young team were able to do just that, setting themselves up for what looks like a ton of success moving forward. And before we move on to talk about the Whipsnakes moving on, let's stick here with teams that were eliminated this past weekend, as the War Dogs will join the Atlas as they head to the couches to watch next weekend's championship game after the Dogs fell to the Whipsnakes this past Sunday. And we'll get more into this game in a moment. But Maki, like the Atlas, this War Dogs team looked a lot different when compared to last year. But while Ben Rubier sent away some of those big names in return for draft selections, Andy Copeland did the opposite. He was welcoming those big names, and he actually got one from the Atlas, an attackman, Ryan Brown, who played a huge role on this offense. He was one of the league's top goal scorers. He also brought in big names like Mikey Schlosser in the entry draft offensively. Michael Sowers, unfortunately, didn't play too much this season, but he was taken second overall in the college draft. A lot of good things we're hoping to see from Mike Sowers in the coming years. And then along with those offensive additions, Copeland was able to practically rebuild this defense around LSM Ryland Reese by adding both Liam Burns and Ben Randall in the entry draft. Eli Gobrecht he added through a trade, and then the icing on the cake, goalie Dylan Ward, acquired from the Chaos for a 2022 college draft pick, which is a first-round pick for next year's college draft. And those changes all resulted in the Water Dogs kicking it into another gear following that All-Star break. They went on to win 4 straight to close out the regular season, earning themselves that top seed. And Maki, like this Atlas team, this was the type of season that Andy Copeland and the Water Dogs were hoping for coming in. Again, minus the championship trophy, but it seems like this team is now loaded to make another run come next season.
Oh, absolutely. I think a good quote for this team is kind of, slow and steady wins the race. And, they didn't make it to the championship game, as you said, but I think that they made a huge step from last year. I mean, it's only their second season being a team. And, even though the PLL has only been around for a few seasons, it can be tough to be that entry team, as we've seen. But, they really stepped up all season. I think Coach Copeland did a really good job of getting the right guys on the field at the right time. I really enjoy watching Zach Carrier play, and he will forever be one of my favorite players just because he is the absolute definition of a pure grinder, and he will do anything for the team, and he changes the pace of the game.
Big team.
Austin, big team, a huge team guy, the biggest team guy. He will do anything, and it is so fun to watch as a pure lacrosse junkie. That is what you want in a player. And I think that they had a really good balance on their team of rookies as well as guys that have played pro lacrosse for a while to kind of add this thing. You have Ethan Walker and Michael Sowers down on the offensive end. Again, we didn't get to see Sowers too much, but I think Ethan Walker, yes, go Pios, he did a great job of stepping in and really filling those shoes while Sowers was down and out. Ryan Brown, I think, is another just amazing player to watch on the field. And again, he has that that mentality on the field to kind of hold down the fort. But we were able to see, there's always these guys that can't stand Dylan Ward or whatever, and even turned to trade Ward from the NLL to the PLL. So we always get that. But at the end of it, we were able to see that he is just as good as everyone has always said he is. He can get onto his game. He can play the way that he's always played. Everyone has their off games. Everyone has their off days. But at the end of the day, these guys were able to pull through and get as far as they could this season. I really do think that, with some new additions next year, I think that they can have an outstanding season, because I just think that Copeland has done a really good job of getting the right guys to do the right thing that they want. They don't have any star-studded people that I think do everything for them. I think they have a really good mix of guys that will do something as a team to get this team to be successful, which is really, really special to watch, I think.
It was kind of a dicey start there for Dylan Ward. He didn't really start. He didn't really have the best of starts, but then obviously come the middle of the season, he kind of clicked it into another gear. Got hot towards the end of the season, obviously rode the War Dogs there. 4 straight wins helping them to that point. But the Atlas and the War Dogs, they go from selecting 1 and 2 in the college draft just this year, which 9 times out of 10, that does signal 2 of the worst teams from the year before. And you really couldn't make a good argument to convince me that they weren't the 2 worst teams from Utah in 2020. But they go from 1 and 2 in the college draft to finishing 2nd and 1st, respectively, in the 2021 regular season standings, and falling just short of the semifinals, or in the semifinals of championship. So all great seasons from both of these teams. Unfortunate that we won't see their 2021 seasons continue, especially for the Water Dogs, as I had future bets tied up with the Water Dogs. But it will be interesting to see how both of these head coaches, both of whom are Coach of the Year finalists this season, it will be interesting to see how they both attack this coming offseason ahead of next year. The Atlas, especially, as they have, as we mentioned, multiple picks towards the top of next year's college draft. We will see how both those coaches and those teams go about getting ready for the 2022 season. All right, I tried to push it along as far as I could, but yes, the Whipsnakes are returning back to Championship Sunday, making what is now their 3rd consecutive trip to the championship game, looking to defend the title for now what would be the 2nd straight time. First, a quick shout out for John Haas. His wife had a baby this week, which is why he was a late scratch from Sunday's semifinal. So congratulations to John Haas and Mrs. Haas. But also, the story in this one was Zed scoring another 5 goals and Brian Phipps stepping up off the bench. Let's start with Phipps, and let's first remind ourselves of who Brian Phipps is. He's a veteran of the sport. He's won a handful of championships at the pro field level. And in terms of this season, he started off as one of 3 goalies on the Redwoods depth chart, who then got added by the Whipsnakes during the middle of the season, and he came in a few weeks ago against the Redwoods in the quarterfinals, helping them to a big come-from-behind win to get to this semifinal game, which they end up getting to the championship. And with Kyle Bernlohr struggling in recent weeks, he got the official nod from Coach Stagnita to start against the War Dogs in this semifinal. And along with the Whipsnakes' 2-time defending champion defense, he holds the War Dogs to 10 goals with that trip to the championship game on the line.
Yeah, is the whip snakiest thing I could possibly think of. The guy they pick up off the restricted roster of another team comes in and takes them to the championship game. It sounds about right. It's about par for the course. You know, I was very interested. Congratulations to John Haas. I was kind of worried that his baby might score a goal in the game for the Whip Snakes or something like that. It seems like,
Just
it's,
teleport out of nowhere onto the field and right on the crease.
when she's of age to come into the league, there might be like a co-op thing going on. Jim Stagnita is going to have her in the lineup, and she's just going to go like she's going to go full Charlotte North on the PLL. It's going to be fucking game over. Anyhow, that was a weird tangent I went off on, so just ignore me there. But Brian Phipps we knew what he was coming into this game. He's one of the best veterans in the league. He's been a starter in the MLL for almost his entire career, if not his entire career. So it's not out of the blue. It's not a surprise what he did. Maybe coming in off just playing, coming in with his first, start of his PLL career might be a bit surprising. But Kyle Bernlohr is, I think, cold streak is probably a fair assessment. He's been kind of hard to watch in a couple of those games. I think one of the games, I think they beat the Redwoods. He only had 4 saves. Like just some very un-Kyle Bernlohr like numbers. But the Whip Snakes find a way, as they always do. And Zed Williams they said it on the vlog, man. The worst thing that the Water Dogs could have done was talk shit to Zed Williams. That was not smart at all. That guy was fired up. I've never seen that man Selly a goal harder in my life than he was that night. And that Selly is lethal. But I feel like I've been on here for the past month and a half pumping the Whip Snakes tires. So I don't know. I'll leave it to Maki to talk about. But the Whip Snakes are good. I don't know. Go Chaos. I'm not even allowed to say that. The Towers won't even let me. So I guess I'm on the Whips wagon.
Going forward for this championship game, it does appear that the plan as of right now is for Phipps to start in between the pipes for the Whip Snakes next weekend in DC, but it's all information that we will follow, so make sure to tune into GLE next week as we get set for the championship game. But Jim Stagnita did remind us that Kyle Bernlohr is his future for this team. But Mackie, going back to the Zed Williams conversation, he was phenomenal, the 2020 MVP, scoring 5 goals to help his team get back to the championship game. What impressed you the most from Zed and really this whole offensive unit as they look to win a 3rd consecutive title?
Yeah, I think something that was kind of interesting as watching the Whip Snakes this season is that they had a lot of holes to fill with different injuries and different people kind of weaving in and out of the lineup. I think Zed is always going to be an absolute baller on the field. He is someone that you cannot deny is just an absolute stud when he's playing. You can't help but take your eyes to him when he's playing. I just think that they read each other so well. And, the connections between the players are what makes this offense so special. You look at the Archers, who also have a star-studded offense, but I think that this year they almost tried to do too much, and that's why they struggled. Whereas with this Whip Snakes team, they just can read each other and find these beautiful connections that it's like words being written across your screen. It's just amazing to watch. I think that is why they are where they are. And they're able to step into other spots when they need to. I think Zed is a key piece of this offense because of the way he plays. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected. Yes, when they talk smack about him, he's gonna turn around and score a bunch of goals. That's just how these players work. But that's what this team needs. Like he's not gonna stand by. He's gonna step up for himself, his team, and compete and finish. And I think that it's gonna be a good game to watch. I really hope it's a good game to watch. I do think that both of these teams have come a long way, and so I'm so excited to see how this turns out.
You guys got it good. You're both going to this game. I'm going to have to be watching from the TV, which isn't the worst thing. Obviously, NBC putting on a great production this season, so definitely excited for that. But it's like we didn't expect the Whips to get hot come playoff time. They come in as the 5 seed. They've been beat up all season by injuries. It seems like there's a few other teams that might have a better outlook, and then they go on and beat 2 of those teams that many of us were eyeing as potential championship contenders. Moral of the story, never count out the Ship Snakes, the Whip Snakes. But that sets us up for next Sunday's championship game, September 19th at noon Eastern, between the Chaos and the Whip Snakes. And we'll be back next week to get you all ready for it. So make sure to keep your eyes and ears open for Goal Line Extended, definitely towards the end of the week before the game, and possibly another show earlier in the week as well. So make sure to follow both GL Extended and Lacrosse Flash across social media so that you don't miss any of it. But Austin, Maki, I want to thank you both for joining me today. A very quick semifinal recap here as we look back at that semifinal round and look ahead to next weekend's PLL Championship game. But that is going to do it for today's episode of the PLL Flash. I want to thank you all for watching. If you are not already, as I said before, make sure to subscribe to Goal Line Extended on YouTube and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future shows. All the links that you will need, including our website, lacrosseflash.com, and all of our social media handles will be in the description down below. I hope you all have an incredible weekend of this week off ahead of the championship game, and we will talk to you next week. Cheers.
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at GL Extended and subscribe to the show on any of your favorite podcast outlets. You can find Lacrosse Flash on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and online at lacrosseflash.com.